Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a fluid for when our guy hits the ground here. And essentially it's going to be kind of a torus shape that's going to billow out, and we'll get some nice rolling motion as it kind of billows out away from him. So let's go ahead and let's just create a fluid container. And let's bring our fluid container and let's snap it down here. Let's bring it up to the ground. And so now I'm going to go ahead and let's just increase the size here. We get enough space to sim in here. And let's make the resolution at least 100. Let's say 125. We need to have a certain type of resolution so we can really see what's going on here. So also, let's start this right when he hits the ground here. So I'm going to start this at frame, say 79. So I'm just going to go through and use some basic settings that I usually start with when I set up any fluid, just to get things going here. So I'm going to set up a minus y in boundary, and in dynamic simulation, it's always good to have a little bit of dampening to make things more stable. And I'm going to turn the high detail solve to all grids. This will make things a little bit more interesting in our fluid solver. I'm going to start the frame at 79, which means that we can back up our simulation or our time frame here to 78. And continuing down here, I'm going to leave off auto resize. And now let's just go down into our velocity settings here. I'm going to add a swirl of 8, and this is just going to make everything, give it a swirly motion. We're going to leave off turbulence and temperature and fuel, and under shading or under lighting, let's turn on self shadow. So we've got a pretty basic fluid going on here. So now with the fluid emitter, what we're going to do is we're going to use a torus shape, and we're going to kind of mimic his backside here, his back area, and we're going to shoot everything out in a torus shape. So let's go and let's select volume as our emitter, and let's scroll down to volume emitter attributes, and let's select a torus. So now I'm just going to set this down into the floor here. And let's just resize this to the size of his back here. And we can lower the section radius a little bit to make it thinner. And there we go. So this is going to be quite fast. We're not going to see exactly where it's coming from. So something like this. So now, what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to emit any heat or fuel. I'm just going to add in density, and I'm going to turn off the fluid drop off. So there'll be no fade off distance from the emitter itself. And let's add in a little bit of turbulence. And under speed method, let's replace the values here. And what we want to do is just to push it outwards. So we're going to use a volume axis field mainly to do this, but we can also give it some interesting movement around the axis a little bit, just to vary things up. And that's fairly pretty much it. So if we were to take a play from here, And just to make sure, I'm going to turn off this nucleus here just in case it's trying to evaluate. We have our particles and end cloths cached, but I'm just going to turn off these things anyways. So now if we take a play, let's see what we get here. So not much. Let's go into our fluid and let's increase our shading so we can see what's happening a bit better here. So let's go down to the density and let's increase the density here a little bit. And under the ramp here, we can just kind of boost up the areas of the density and give it a better curve here. And in the shading, let's make it a bit more opaque. And in the color, let's just give it a browny color here. Kind of like a dust color. Okay, so now let's go in and add a volume axis field. Let's go to Fields and Solvers, Volume Axis, and let's paste that or snap that around our dude here. And essentially, I'm going to make this a really high value, 100. And let's push it away from the center. And we're going to give it some turbulence. But before we do that, let's just change the volume control to a sphere. And let's just make sure that we're going to encompass our area here. So we want to make sure to push it out. Maybe something like that. So now let's just run through here and see what she does. So you can see what's happening here. We're pushing it out. So that's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to key on and off the fluid emitter. And let's have it on for, say, 4 frames. Let's key the emission on at 82, and then 83, let's key this off. So let's get a big puff, and then it's going to stop emitting. And now in the volume axis field, let's add in a little turbulence. So let's just do something really small, 0.25. And let's go into our camera view here. And let's just take a play blast of this.